Oh, hello. Good morning. I'm Dr. Zalika Jarmon Horsey, the principal at Seaford High School, and today I'm going to be reading Chapter 14 of The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. Chapter 14, The World Discovers Wimby. Despite the incident with the famine, my popularity as an inventor led to other opportunities. That same year, one of the teachers at Wimble Primary asked if I'd be interested in starting a science club for the students. He was impressed by my windmill and wanted one on campus. The students look up to you, he said. Your skills in science will really challenge their brains. Sure, I said, I'll do it. The windmill I created for the school was small, much like my first radio experiment. For the blades I used, a metal marzipan, and the generator was a radio motor. I attached it to a blue gum pole and ran the wires into an old Panasonic 2 battery radio. I did it during recess one morning when all the kids were playing soccer. When I connected the wires and the music blasted through the schoolyard, a small riot erupted from all of the excitement. The windmill not only allowed the students to listen to music and news, but they could also charge their parents' mobile phones. Each Monday, I explained to them the basics of science and gave them some simple examples of innovations like how ink first was made by using coal. I also demonstrated the cup and string experiment featured in my books to help explain how the telephone works. I walked them through the steps of how I built everything using everyday materials. So many things around you are reusable, I told them. Where others see garbage, I see opportunity. I hope I was inspiring them in some way, because if I could teach my neighbors how to build windmills, I thought, what else could I teach? What else could we build together? In science, we invent and create, I continued. We make new things that benefit our situation. If we can only invent something to make our lives better, we can improve, we can change Malawi. I later found out some of the students had been so inspired by my windmill, they had gone home and made toy versions themselves. I imagined what it would be like if all these pinwheels were real. What if every home and shop in Wembe had machines on the rooftops to catch the wind? At night, the entire valley would sparkle like a clear sky full of stars. Bringing electricity to my people no longer seemed like a madman's dream. In early November 2016, some officials of the Malawi teacher training activity were inspecting the library at Wimby Primary when they noticed my windmill in the schoolyard. They asked Miss Scully who built it, and she gave them my name. One of them telephoned his boss, Dr. Hartfeld Mishasimi, and described what he'd seen. A few days later, Dr. Mishasimi drove 5 hours to Wimby, where he even more was amazed once he saw the larger windmill at my house. And he asked my father if he could speak with the boy who built it. He's here, my father said, and called me from my room. Dr. Mishasimi was an older man with gray hair, kind and patient eyes. When he spoke, his command of the language was large and powerful. I never heard anyone speak with such good Shisasimi when he spoke English. It was simple and elegant. He asked about the windmill and how it came about. Tell me everything, he said. I told the story as I'd done 100 times before. Then he told that then he took me through the house. Then I took him through the house, demonstrating how my switches and circuit breakers work. He listened carefully, nodding his head, and asked specific questions. These are very tiny bulbs. Why aren't you using the big ones? I can use big ones, I said, but big lights require more voltage. The dynamo is only so strong. How far did you go with your education? Just the first year in secondary school. Then how did you know this stuff about voltage and power? I've been borrowing books from the library. Who teaches you this stuff? Who helps you? No one, I said. I've been reading and doing it alone. Dr. Mishishimi then went to see my parents. You have lights in your house because of your son, he said. What do you think of this? We thought it was mad, said my mother. Dr. Mishishimi laughed and shook his head. I want to tell you something, he said. You may not realize it, but your son has done an amazing thing. This is only the beginning. You're going to see a lot more people come into your house. You're going to see a lot more people come into your house, William Kamkwamba. I have a feeling this boy will go far. I want you to be ready. The visit left me a little confused and very excited. No one had ever asked me such questions before, and no one had ever taken that kind of interest. That afternoon, Dr. Kanshimi returned to his office in Zumba and told his colleagues about what he'd seen. This is fantastic, he said. The whole world needs to know about this boy. I agree. I have just the idea. The next week, Dr. Mishimbi returned to my house with a journalist from Radio 1. It was the famous Everson Mesa, whose voice I'd heard for years. He'd come to my house to interview me. What do you call this thing, he said. I'm calling it electric wind. But how does it work? The blades spin and generate power from a dynamo. And in the future, what do you want to do with this? I wanted to reach every village in Malawi so people can have lights and water. While we waited for the Radio 1 interview to air, Dr. Mishimi came with even more reporters. These men represented all of the great media organizations in Malawi and the Zodiac radio channels, the Daily Times, the Nation, the Nation, Malawi News. They poured out of their cars with their cameras and tape recorders and flocked around the windmill. For 2 hours, they moved through the house, elbowing and shoving one another to get the best pictures of switches and battery systems. You've had your time. Now it's my turn. Move aside. My paper is bigger. Soon our yard was filled with crowds from the training center who come to gawk at the famous journalist. Finally, we see his face. What a handsome man. And he's interviewing William. One of the reporters even climbed my tower and studied the blades and chain system, taking pictures the whole time. Mr. Simi, this is quite genius, he shouted. Yes, he answered. This is the problem with our system. We're losing talent like this all the time as a result of poverty. And when we do send them back to school, it's not a good education. I'm bringing you here because I want the world to see what this boy has done, and I want them to help. Like me, Dr. Mishasimi's father had also been a poor farmer who struggled to feed and clothe his family, but he knew the value of an education. At one point, Dr. Mishashimi was young, and he had volunteered to drop out of school to work so his brothers could go instead. His father refused, saying, all of my kids will stay in school. I will do whatever it takes. It took nearly 10 years for Dr. Jimmy to complete his secondary education. He later earned degrees from the University in Malawi, America, Britain, and South Africa. Before working for the MTTA, he wrote many Malawi textbooks, including my own Standard 8 English reader. The day after the journalist came to visit, the interview finally aired on Radio 1. I was behind the house chatting with my aunt when my mother shouted, William, quick, it's coming on. My family gathered around the radio, and I heard the announcer say, a boy in Wimby near Kashmkar had made electric wind. When my voice came through the speaker, My sister began to cheer. If the radio show weren't enough good fortune, the story in the Daily Times was published the following week with a big headline that said, "School Dropout with a Strike of Genius." The story had a photo of me pretending to connect the wires to the battery in my room. Still unable to wipe the smile from my face, that afternoon I took the paper to the training center to see how everyone else I took the paper to the trading center to show everyone what a madman had done. "We all heard you on the radio," they said. "We're so impressed at how well you spoke." In a way, it took having these reporters to come to my house to make our town finally accept my windmill. After the media coverage, a number of visitors to my house increased tenfold. Shortly after, I started some much needed improvement on the windmill. I realized the big mango tree behind the lattice was blocking my strongest wind, and that I needed it to go higher. My father, with the Daily Times story under his arm, was able to convince the manager of the tobacco estate to give him several giant poles, which I used to build the tower that was 36 feet tall. Once I moved it away from the mango tree, the speed of my blades doubled, and so did the voltage. The day after the Daily Times article ran, a Malawian longby named Soabi Mamba brought the article to his office. Soabi worked as a software engineer and a coder at Health Partnerships, an American charity organization that was working on computerizing Malawi's healthcare system. One of Soabi's colleagues, a tall American named Mike McKee, liked the article about my windmill so much that he wrote about me in his blog, Hacktivate. The blog entry caught the attention of Emeka Ofor, a famous Nigerian author and blogger, who is also the program director of something called the TED Global Conference. While Emeka wanted me to apply to be an official fellow at this conference, and for 3 weeks tried very hard to find me, after harassing the reporters at the paper every day, he finally tracked down Dr. Mishambi. In mid-December 2006, Dr. Mishambi came to my home with the application and paperwork for TED. We sat down under the mango tree, and he helped me answer a lot of the questions, plus write a small essay about my life. When he left, I had no idea what TED was, though I do know now it's technology, entertainment, and design. And it's an annual meeting where scientists and innovators get together and share their big ideas. I wasn't entirely sure what a conference was or what people did at such things. The application didn't even say where it would be held. I suspected Longway, the capital, but didn't know. I imagined myself walking those busy streets and seeing all sorts of new people. I wondered what clothes I would need to wear, since everything I owned hung from a rope in my bedroom and was covered in red roof dust. Even still, it gave me something to dream about. The following week, Dr. Mishami called to say what TED had chosen for me. The conference would be held in Tanzania, an entirely different country. "You'll be honored with other scientists and innovators," he said. "People from all over the world will be there. Perhaps something good can come from it." Wow, Ari, how long would the bus ride take? And what if I got hungry? I'd have to bring plenty of food, perhaps cakes and roasted masa. After all, I had no money. One important thing he said: "We should book your flight before it fills up." I'm traveling by plane. My God. Yes. And they wish to know if you want smoking or non-smoking in the hotel. I'm staying at a hotel? I thought for sure I'd be sleeping in one of those guest houses near the boozing dens where poor people stay. "Of course you're staying in a hotel," he said. "And I have other good news, William. You're going back to school." After visiting my house with the reporters, Dr. Minsham approached the government about accepting me into school. He even taken a collection amongst his colleagues to help pay for my first semester. The process had taken months. Finally, the process had taken months. Finally, the Minister of Education had granted me permission to attend Madison Secondary School, a public boarding school an hour from my home. It wasn't one of the scientist-based schools I'd longed to attend. The headmaster at those places weren't willing to accept me on account of my age and the number of years I had been dropped out. However, the headmaster at Madison and Master Ronix Bannon was also moved by my story that he offered to spend the extra time with me, helping me to catch up. I was terribly behind. While Dr. Mishimi had planned my trip, I packed my things and went to school. This was the first time I'd ever lived away from home. In my suitcase, I packed a toothbrush, toothpaste, flip-flops, a blanket, and all my dirt street clothes. I carried it out through the courtyard and stopped under the mango tree where Jeffrey and my parents were waiting. I guess I see you soon, I told them. Work hard, my father said. I want you to know we're very proud of you. Jeffrey strapped my suitcase onto his bicycle and we rode it towards the truck stop. Along the way, I said goodbye to Gilbert. We don't have phones, so how will we talk, he said. I know it will be difficult, I said. Maybe I can come visit you there. Oh, Gilbert, that would be great. Please do. I'll miss you, friend, for sure. A pickup soon appeared in a cloud of dust. Jeffrey raised his hand and flagged down the driver. I'll see you when school ends, he said. When you arrive, find someone with a phone and send me their number. We'll talk this way. I'll make sure Gilbert is there. That would be good, I said. Take care of my windmill, will you? Let me know everything that happens. Sure, don't worry. I climbed aboard with the other passengers, found a sack of charcoal for a seat, and we rolled away towards Kensington. Once there, I caught a minibus down the MI highway to a small town, Madison. The minibus dropped me off at the junction of the minibus dropped me at the junction on the outskirts of town, where a long road led to the school. I walked a kilometer with my suitcase bouncing behind on the gravel road until I stood outside the gates. In a matter of minutes, I had a dorm room and dorm mats, meal times, and a rigorous schedule of classes. Everything was new and foreign and a little overwhelming, but my God, what a pleasure it was to be learning in a real school. The classrooms at Madison had solid floors that didn't leak and smooth, unblemished concrete floors. Large windows let in sunlight but kept the cold out. I'd had an actual desk of my own, complete with a pencil holder. During study sessions at night, real fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, or at least they did not when it wasn't a blackout. Science class was held in an actual chemistry lab, where the shelves would line with microscopes, great coils of high-resistant wires, glass beakers, and old jars of boric acid. If you can believe it, one of the first lessons in science class was how to create pass-through. Oh my God, this is painful. He also gave me useful travel advice. For instance, on a plane, I'll be assigned a seat that was mine and only mine. There was no need to rush and use your elbows like the people did in Malawian buses. He also gave me useful travel advice. For instance, on a plane, I'll be assigned a seat that was mine and mine only. There was no need to rush and use your elbows like people did on Malawian buses. Also, if the red light was on near the bathroom, that meant it was occupied. Because other passengers became nauseous on my first plane ride, each seat came with a paper bag for vomit. That was the good information. That was good information because it was certain that I needed. In June, I left school and came home to pack. The next morning, the driver appeared to take me to the airport. Our son is leaving us and traveling by airplane, my father told my mother, smiling. That's right, I said, flying like a bird in the sky. I'll be waving as I pass over. We'll be watching for you. We'll see you. That's right, I said, flying like a bird in the sky. I'll be waving as I pass over. We'll be watching for you. We'll see. I'm reading that again. Sorry, Kelly. That's right, I said, flying like a bird in the sky. I'll be waving as I pass over. We'll be watching for you. You'll see us here. My father then tucked a bag of roasted peanuts in my pocket. They were still warm. That evening, I was so nervous, I stayed awake at my hotel watching soccer on Super Sports 3 until the sun came up and it was time to leave. On the plane, I couldn't believe it, but sitting next to me was none other than Sepoy Mumba, the software engineer who had first seen my article. Because he's a nice guy, he introduced himself, not knowing who I was. When I told him my name and where I was going, he replied, "Oh my God, William, the windmill guy." He explained how excited he was to show the story to Mike McKee, who blogged about me on Hacktivate. Sepoy was a very reason anybody had ever heard about me. And now and it also happened that Sylvia was a TED follower himself, being honored for his coding work at Bubba. I was also fortunate to find him. As the airplane taxied towards the runway, I began to notice the others seated around me. They looked so well dressed and confident, like they had important things to do, and their busy lives required them to travel in jets across the world. As the plane accelerated and lifted its nose in the air, I pressed my back against the seat and laughed. I was now one of them.